Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another session of the VOC Matric Revision program on 91.3 FM Stereo, but streaming live on our social medias. You can catch us on Facebook and YouTube, so that's probably where you're getting us right now. And we advise you right at the offset of the stream to please share these videos with those people who might find benefit in them, inshallah. So if you're not a matriculate yourself, but you know of someone who might benefit, who is doing any of the subjects that we are focusing on, by all means, share with them, inshallah. I mean, well, today we'll be focusing on travel and tourism. And of course, we will be joined by our resident specialist for today, of course, who is Zubair Samodien. Zubair, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, and yourself?
Alhamdulillah. Can't complain.
Alhamdulillah. I think, alhamdulillah, this subject has become more relevant now as we step into a space of, post-COVID. So tourism is opening up once again, and I think people are excited to, get back into the field. And so there'll be a lot of experiences for young people also who job shadow in this industry. We're looking forward, inshallah, to things opening up even further. And so, yes, you can so much, because I think I love the subject because also it helps people to explore their own country. It allows people to explore their own environment, which is just fantastic. Well, Zubair, I'm going to hand over to you to proceed. And we'll have a full session on today's paper. Fadal Mashkura, take it away, sir.
Right. So good afternoon. Welcome to this week's class. I just want to get my screen share sorted here quickly. So for those of you who were in my class a few weeks ago, we looked at an introduction. We looked at the examination guidelines, and then we focused on time zones. That was one of the topics that we looked at. So continuing with some of the calculations and then a bit of theory towards the latter part of the lesson. Today we'll be looking at foreign exchange and customer care. So I decided to group these topics together because in conjunction with time zones, these are some of the easier topics where students can actually score very easy marks if they understand the calculations, if they understand the way that they need to answer the questions, especially customer care that we'll look at a little bit later. It's more about understanding the question as opposed to actually answering the question, but we'll look at that at the later stage. So as I mentioned, we'll be looking at foreign exchange and customer care, where they are situated in the question papers. In other words, do we find it at the start, the middle, or the latter part of the question paper? How are these topics tested? And then also we'll look at a practice question or two. Right. So what are the contributions to the exam paper? So in our first lesson, we looked at the overall picture of the tourism paper. So just a reminder that the paper consists of 200 marks for a total of 3 hours. So unfortunately, it's a lot of writing, but that is just the nature of the tourism paper. So over here, we will see the section A, section B, C, D, and E. So over here, by section B, we will see foreign exchange, right? So foreign exchange goes with map work and tour planning, and that gives us a total of 50 marks. So that doesn't mean that foreign exchange is 50 marks. It just means that foreign exchange is a part of this 50 marks. So it's usually about 10, 15, sometimes it could even be 20 marks if they're actually nice. But around about 15 to 20 marks is usually what we focus on when it comes to foreign exchange. And then at the bottom over here, you'll see by section E, literally the last question that you will find in your tourism paper, that is communication and customer care. That also goes with domestic, regional, and international tourism, 30 marks in total. So in most cases, communication and customer care is also about 10 to 15 marks. So the first part you will come across at the very start of your paper in section B, and then the second topic that we are covering today, that will be literally the last question that you'll find. So for those of you that haven't checked out the examination guidelines, it is there on the DBE's website under the 2021 examination guidelines. And this is the exact structure of your paper. So for those of you that have written or still busy with your prelim exams and you're still a bit confused about the structure, this is literally how your exam paper will look. So your prelim exam will look like this. and then your final exam at the end of the year will also follow this same structure. So you can already see what are the weightings for each of the questions. So you can see tourist attractions, cultural and heritage tourism, and marketing is a very big part of the paper. The same for map work, tour planning, foreign exchange, and then obviously you get the smaller topics like communication and customer care, sustainable and responsible tourism, that are subtopics within a main section of the paper. Right. So let's recap on foreign exchange. Okay. So before we go into the topic and we look at, what does it say in terms of definitions and all of these things, literally what foreign exchange is, that is when we are exchanging foreign currency. Right. So over here on my right, we have all the different types of currencies in the world. And then we can literally see an exchange for the one currency being exchanged for the other currency. So it's just important that you keep that mindset that when it comes to foreign exchange, these calculations, this theory, all of these things, but the main idea that you need to remember is that it is exchanging foreign currency. So for example, for us living in South Africa, our currency is obviously the South African rand, right? So any other currency throughout the world that circulates in South Africa is deemed as a foreign currency because it is not the South African rand, whether it be American dollars, whether it be the British pound, whether it be euros, Australian dollars, any other currency that is not the South African rand but is in South Africa is then deemed as a foreign currency. So let's look at foreign exchange. So when tourists travel to another country, they have to exchange their own currency for that of the country that they're visiting in order to buy things such as food, gifts, or pay for accommodation. Okay, so that first part, right, it's a very nice topic because, as it was mentioned in the introduction, people are beginning to travel more, right? Countries are how do I say, they're reducing their COVID restrictions, they're opening their borders, they're more accustomed to let people come in and out. So we're expecting travel to obviously increase as time continues. So when tourists are traveling to another country, they have to exchange their own currency for that of the country that they are visiting, right? So we have our South African currency, South African rands, and we are going, let's say, we are going to England, right? We're going to England because we enjoy watching football, right? We enjoy watching football, so we are going to England to go and watch football over there, right? So we can't take our South African rands and go and pay for football tickets, accommodation, food, all of those things with South African rands. No, we need to exchange it for whatever currency is being used in England, and obviously that is the Great British Pound. So they exchange their own currency, which is our South African rands, for that of the currency that they are visiting, which in this case will be the Great Britain pound, to buy things such as food, gifts, or to pay for accommodation. The rate at which one currency can be exchanged for another affects not only the decisions made by tourists to visit a particular country, but also the amount of foreign currency earned by a country. Okay, so just looking back at that, the rate at which one currency can be exchanged. Okay, this is the exchange rate that we see every lunchtime, every evening when it comes to primetime news. Okay, so what that means is how much does it cost us for 1 rand or 1 South African rand, and how many foreign exchange does it get us? Okay, so if you're looking at it, these things change all the time. Okay, so back in the day, things were even, right? So 1 rand was the equivalent of £1 or $1, whatever the case may be. But the whole reason for the changes in exchange rate and the different values is because some things, when they were traded, they were found that one thing is more valuable than the other. So how can one person have a very valuable good that is, a rarity? Someone has something that is really common that you can find, by every second house. Okay, so the whole trade exchange was not, they deemed it to be not very equal. Okay, so that is where currency comes from. Okay, so as currencies fluctuate, some countries have better exchange rate relations with other countries. So if you look at our South African rand, for example, when we're comparing our South African rand to the pound, which is more or less what I'm going to be doing for this lesson, we'll find that the pound is a much stronger currency than the South African rand. Okay, so what that means is we will have to pay a lot more rands just to get £1, whereas when an English person comes to South Africa and they are wanting to get rands, they can get much more rands for their pounds because they have a stronger currency. So that affects the decision, as we said, not only to visit a particular country, but also the amount of foreign currency earned by a country. Okay, so just looking back at travel, when people want to go overseas, what are some of the things that entice people to go there? One of the things is the time of season. Okay, if you want to go experience warm weather, especially when it's cold in South Africa, our winter months, we want to go to the north to go and experience some sunshine. Maybe you want to go sit on an island or a beach, whatever the case may be. That's the first thing. And then secondly, it is also looking at that exchange rate, looking at how expensive is it for us to convert our South African rands to whatever currency that particular country uses. So as we said, for a South African going to England, it is very, very expensive because the pound is so much stronger than the rand. That is why most people will rather go to they'll go to other European countries because the euro is slightly weaker than the pound. It's still a lot when you're comparing it to South African rands, but it's slightly less. That is why people will rather, go to countries that use the euro as opposed to England or Scotland that uses the pound. So that's just a little bit of background as to how this whole concept of foreign exchange came into play. So how exactly do we go about this currency conversion is a question that I'm asking, because now I've given you a definition, I've given you a bit of a background. So now we need to ask ourselves, okay, so how exactly do we go about this currency conversion? So currency conversion means literally taking the one currency and converting it to another currency. So in other words, we're going from rands to pounds, or we're going from South African rands to US dollars, or we are going from South African rands to euros. Okay, so we're literally converting our currency. So you might find this a bit funny, but literally all you need is to either multiply or divide. That's all that you need to do. When you're going for currency conversions, you need to either multiply or you need to divide. That is all that you need to do. Okay, so let's have a look at the following method. Right. So here's a method over here, and I'm going to run it in conjunction with the steps that I have over here. Okay, so very importantly, when it comes to an exchange, foreign exchange question, okay, the exchange rate will always be given to you. So in the example that we will do after this, you will see that they give you the exchange rate, because sometimes I get questions from students saying, but sir, the exchange rate is maybe 20 Rand for a pound, but today it's 18 Rand a pound. So like, what's the correct value? You don't have to worry about that, because the nature of exchange rates is that they change constantly. So whatever the exchange rate was this afternoon when it was, lunchtime news, it will be different when it comes to this evening when it's prime time news. So either the South African rand would have appreciated or it would have depreciated somewhat when compared to the British pound. Okay, so number one is the exchange rate will always be given to you. Okay, so don't get technical and overcomplicate things by thinking, oh, I need to study what is the exchange rate, what is it going to be this morning on the morning that I'm writing the paper. You don't have to worry about that. The exchange rate will be given to you. Also, another thing that you need to remember is that the exchange rate that is printed on your question paper, that is the exchange rate that was correct at the time that the paper was drawn up. Okay, so let's say this paper was set maybe a month ago. At that time, that was the correct exchange rate. Obviously, now it will be a lot different compared to that. So just go with the actual exchange rate that was on the question paper, because that was correct at the time. Right. So now step 2 says, based on the information, either multiply or divide. Okay, so I'm saying it's very easy. All that we are going to do is we're either just going to multiply or we're going to divide. Okay, so let's go back to my previous slide. So in this example, we have the South African rand and we have the US dollar. Okay, so just a side note that the South African rand is abbreviated as the ZAR. Okay, because of Saudi Arabia and their currency, the rial, they don't use SAR for South Africa. They use the Dutch term Zuid-Afrikaanse rand. That is technically what they use. That is where the ZAR comes from. Okay, so when you are looking to convert currency in that, remember, you're looking for ZAR, that is the South African rand. And obviously the USD is the US dollar, right? So the first thing that we do over here is to identify the stronger currency, okay? So in most cases, not all the time, but in most cases, when it comes to a foreign exchange question, it will always be the South African rand, right, that is going to be used with either the euro, the British pound, or the dollar, the US dollar. Okay, those are the most common currencies that they use. Yes, there are other currencies, there are pulas and there are yens and all the other types of currencies out there, but they'll usually use the most common currencies out there. Okay, so in this case, we have the South African rand and we have the US dollar. Okay, so what we're doing is we firstly identifying the stronger currency. So in this case, it is the US dollar. How do we know that? Because one US dollar earns us 16 rand 22 cents. So what that means is that one US dollar, if somebody comes and they provide me with one US dollar, the equivalent rand value of that is 16 rand 22 cents. So in other words, if I'm a South African and I want to earn dollars and I want to earn just $1, I need to provide 16 rand 22 cents before I can actually get one US dollar, right? So that is essentially our exchange rate. In this case, the dollar rand exchange rate is 16.22, right? So the stronger currency to the weaker currency, we multiply. Okay, so what that means, when we are going from the stronger currency, right, which in this case is the dollar, to the weakened currency, which is the rand, we are multiplying. So in this case, I'm saying that we have 50 US dollars, right? 50 US dollars times or multiply by our exchange rate, which in this case we identified as being 16 rand 22. That gives us a total of 811 rand. Okay. So in this case, what we needed to do was identify the stronger currency, which we said was the US dollar. And then we needed to identify our exchange rate, which was 16.22. And then because we are going from the stronger currency to the weaker currency, the answer would be a result of multiplication. Now, you can also check your answer, right? If you look at the exchange rate over here, we're saying that $1 equals 16 rand 22. So if we are having $50, then that means the equivalent rand value, right, needs to be more than 50. So if you are unsure whether you needed to multiply or you needed to divide, simply look at your calculation. 50 times 1622, that gives you 811 rand. Whether you were going to say 50 divided by 1622, it would give you a very low number, right? And going back to the principle, stronger currency, when comparing it, the US dollar is the stronger currency, right? So we're expecting that our dollars would earn us a higher rand value. So in this case, our 50 times our 1622 gives us 811 rand, okay? But the opposite is also true. So the weaker currency to the stronger currency, we divide, okay? So what that means is, if we have a certain amount of South African rand and we want to convert that to dollars, right? How many dollars do we get for a set South African value, right? So we can go to the first part over here, identify the stronger currency. So the stronger currency is the US dollar, okay? So that means if we have rands and we're converting it to dollars, then we expect, so it's important that you get this train of thought that when you're going from the weaker currency and you want to divide that into the stronger currency, your answer is going to be less than what you started out with. When you're going from the stronger currency to the weaker currency, your answer is going to be more than what you started out with. Okay, so what I mean by that is, let's say you have 2,500 rand, right? So I have 2,500 rand with me, and I want to exchange that for dollars because I want to go and travel to the USA for, let's say, a week or two. Okay, so I want to know how many dollars do I actually get for my 2,500 rand. Okay, so the weaker currency, right, in this case is the South African rand, and we are wanting to find out how many dollars we have. So we're going from the weaker currency to the stronger currency. So we are dividing. So we have our 2,500 divided by the exchange rate, which in this case is 16 rand 22, because it is 16 rand 22 in order to get us just $1. Okay, so 2,500 divided by 16 rand 22, that gives us $154.13. So that essentially means that 2,500 when converted to US dollars, we essentially just have $154.13. Okay, so not a lot of money for that 2,500 rand. So I would rather keep my 2,500 in South Africa because I seem richer or I seem more wealthy. But it's important that you understand when you need to multiply and when you need to divide. Okay, so let's go back to that slide that I was referring to. Do the calculation. Okay, so once we've, based on the information that was given to us, and by the information I mean identifying the stronger currency, right? Then you either multiply or you divide. How do you know when you need to multiply or divide? It is over here, right? So stronger currency to the weaker currency, we multiply. Weaker currency to the stronger currency, we divide. Okay, that is all that you need to know. This is the little note that you need to be remembering. Okay, stronger to weaker is multiply, weaker to stronger, we divide. And if you're unsure about it, do both. Okay, so for example, with this one, let's say you were to multiply it, and now you see that your dollar value is even more than your rand value, and you're telling yourself that $1 gives you 16 rand 22. So how can your dollar value be even more than your rand value if you're looking to exchange? Okay, then you can also see by your answer, no, this is not, this is incorrect. Let's try divide. Let us divide. What is the answer? Oh, 154.13. That is less than the 2,500. The US dollar is the stronger currency. Thus, this answer should be lower than the rand value that we started out with. Okay, so very important that you understand which one is the stronger currency, which one is the weaker currency, and then of course you have to just determine then whether you must multiply or divide. Okay, so in step 3, once we've based on the information given to us, we either multiply or divide. We then do the calculation. Okay, so that is what we've done over here. We've done the calculation. Now, step 4 is the last part. Step 4 is the answer. Okay, so step 4 is the answer that we have over here. But what I've said is always include the currency symbol and round off to 2 decimal places. Okay, now this might seem like common sense or common knowledge, but I've seen in the case where students still round these things off to 3, 4, 5, 6 decimal places. Currency is always rounded off to 2 decimal places. Okay, I always make this joke with my students. I tell them when you go to the shop, you go maybe to Spar, to Pick and Pay, whatever, and you're purchasing all these items, and maybe it's 150 rand or 156 rand, whatever, 30 cents, and you pay with a 200 rand note. The change that you get, right, it will be 42 rand 50 cents, for example. It's not 42 rand 537 cents or whatever the case may be. And they always laugh at me when I tell them this, but that is sometimes how they write their answers, where they write it to more than 2 decimal places. That is incorrect. Currency is always 2 decimal places. So that's the first thing. Remember to always round off to the nearest 2 decimal places. And then the second part over here that I have is always include the currency symbol. Okay, so in this case I didn't do it over here. Okay, but when you are dealing with currency, always include the currency symbol. Okay, so if it's rands, you must include the R. If it's dollars, include the little S over there. However, if you're not sure what the symbol is, or you're a bit confused, you can always just write over here, like I've done, USD, US dollar, or Australian dollar, or euros, whatever the case may be, as long as you state the currency over there. So it's encouraged that you use a symbol because it's always given to you. But if you're a bit unsure, or for some reason you don't know how to draw the symbol, whatever, you can always just use the abbreviation. ZAR for South African Rand, USD for US dollar. Okay, so what we need to take from this is, firstly, we always round it off to 2 decimal places. And the second thing is, don't forget to include your currency symbol. Okay, if you don't include your currency symbol, then that is unfortunately just a number. That's just a number, and you won't get full marks for the question because you didn't answer correctly. Okay, so very, very easy. Very, very easy to get marks when you understand it, but also it's very easy to lose marks for small little errors. Okay, so always remember to round off to 2 decimal places, and then to also include your currency symbol over there. Okay, so let's look at a typical exam question. Okay, so this was taken from the 2021 paper, right? So over here we have read by number 3.1, read the question, study the exchange rate table below, and answer the questions that follow. Okay, so that says that Layla visited a sister in Los Angeles in the USA. She saved 20,000 rand for a holiday. Okay, so Layla's visiting a sister in the USA. So already we can see that the country that we are dealing with is South Africa and the USA. Okay, so South Africa has the rand, the US has the US dollar. Okay. So we have an exchange rate table over here. We have country, the United States of America. We have country code used is the USD. And then this we will focus on a little bit later. Okay. So in this case, they didn't give you a symbol, right? They didn't give you a symbol. So when it comes to your answer, you will then not write the S with the line going through it. You will then write USD as is in the case over here. So your final answer then will be something like this, okay? Because they gave you the code that you need to use over here, okay? So like I said, this BBR and BSR we will look at afterwards. This is the last part of foreign exchange. We're going to be looking at the easy parts first. If you understand the easy parts, then this too is just as easy, okay? So in 3.1.1, use the exchange rate table below or use the exchange rate table above to calculate the amount in US dollars that Layla had saved for a holiday. Round off your answer to 2 decimal places. Okay. So there they tell you that you need to round off your answer to 2 decimal places, right? So here we have by 3.1.1, we have our South African Rand. Okay. So what was our first step? Our first step was to identify, after we got all our information, right? The exchange that was given to us based on the information. So the information is identify the stronger currency. So in this case, the stronger currency is obviously the dollar, okay? Because we can see that there's an exchange rate of 15.97 and there's an exchange rate of 16.87, okay? So in this case, we can clearly see that the dollar is the stronger of the two currencies, right? So that is what we have over here, okay? So the reason they use the 1687, okay, and as I said, I will explain to you afterwards why we're using this, is because we have rands and we want to get dollars because we are traveling to the USA. So if you're traveling to a place, we use BSR, which is bank selling rate. If you are returning to a place, we use BBR. But like I said, I'll explain this afterwards. I just want to go through the calculation with you, okay? So 1687, that is the value that you're going to be using, right? So we have 20,000, which is our South African value. We have our exchange rate, which is 16 Rand 87. So what is our value in dollars? Okay, we've already identified that dollars is our strong currency. Okay, so when we are going from strong currency to weak currency, we multiply. Okay, but in this case, we are going from weak currency to strong currency. So when we're going from a weaker currency to a stronger currency, we divide, right? So in this case, we had our 20,000, we divided it by our exchange rate, which is 1687, and that means that for 20,000 Rand, we essentially have $1,185.54, right? $1,185.54, right? So as you can see, there's a very easy 3 marks over here, right? So 3 marks over there for the calculation. Okay, so my tip to students, right, as you can see that if you did the calculation, you get a mark for using the divide sign, a mark for using the correct exchange rate value, and then also a mark for the final answer. But also, if you just wrote down the answer, you would also get an automatic 3 marks. Okay, so my advice is always do the calculation. Do not just write the final answer out. Reason being, if you make a mistake, let's say you maybe wrote a 6 here or something, or this is a 7, or for some reason, whatever you wrote as your final answer is incorrect, you can still get 2 marks or at least 1 mark for your calculation. Maybe your value that you used was incorrect, but you'll at least get 1 mark for identifying that you needed to divide. Okay, so you can still get marks for your calculation even if your answer is wrong, only if you write out the full calculation. If you just write down the answer and you make a mistake somewhere, then unfortunately you lose all 3 or 4 or 5 of those marks. In this case, it is worth 3 marks. So if your answer was incorrect and you just wrote down the answer, you would then lose all 3 of these marks. Okay, so my advice is to always write out the calculation, as easy as it may be. Rather be safe than sorry, rather do the entire calculation, right? So, very, very easy 3 marks over. That's the one of the easiest foreign exchange questions that you'll get. Okay, So as I said, BBR and BSR I will go through just a bit later, but you should be familiar with it already. I'm sure you would have covered it when you went through foreign exchange, looking at the bank buying rate and the bank selling rate. Okay. So on the last day of shopping, Layla had to choose between two Lakers basketball jackets for her son. She sent a picture on WhatsApp of both jackets for her son to make the final choice. She had $303.50 left to spend. Okay, so jacket A over here, the price of that is $100, and jacket B, the price is $120. Bearing in mind that she has $303.50 worth on person. So Layla's son chose jacket A. Okay, so this kid is choosing this white jacket over here with a value of $100. So calculate the amount in rand she had left after she had purchased jacket A. Round off your answer to 2 decimal places. Okay, so this is 5 marks. So there's 2 things that we need to do in this question. Number 1 is we need to find out how much dollars she had left after she made the purchase. Okay, so she has $303.50 and she spends $100 on this. So we first need to find out how many dollars she has left, and then that dollars we then need to convert to a rand value to find out what is that value when converted to rand. So there's 2 things that we need to do in this calculation. Okay, so let's see what they've done. So firstly, what they did was to add the $303.50, they minus the $100, and that essentially means, let me see. This is actually a mistake here from the department. Yeah, so it's very good that I'm here to note this is actually incorrect. Okay, this should actually be US dollars. Okay, so the 303.50 minus the 100 means we have $203.50. Right, so we have $203.50 left. That is our dollar value. Okay, so that we have. So that is the first part of the question that we've answered. So the second part is that remaining dollars that we have, what is the equivalent rand value of that? Okay, so now we are going from the stronger currency, which is the dollar, to the weaker currency, which is the rand. And when we're going from a stronger currency to a weaker currency, we multiply. Okay, so in this case, we are taking the $203.50, right? And in this case, we are multiplying it by 1597. Okay, so the reason we are using 1597 as our exchange rate and not the 1687, right, is because remember she needs to return to South Africa. So when you come into a country with foreign currency and you want to exchange that for your normal currency, which in this case will be South African rands, that is then deemed as the bank buying rate. So banks buy foreign currency, right? They are buying foreign currency when you are returning. So think of it when you're coming back, BNB, bank buying rate, coming back to your country where you're from, we use the bank buying rate. When you are going, when you're leaving to go travel somewhere, we are using the bank selling rate. So she has dollars and she wants to get back her South African rands because she's coming back. We use the bank buying rate. Okay. So in this case, that is our 15 Rand 97. So 203.50 times 1597, that gives us a total of 3,249 Rand 90 cents. Very important. Over there, 2 decimal places as well as our code ZAR. Okay. Alternatively, you could have also just written down your answer over there, but you're going through all the trouble of doing the calculation. You might as well just include the calculation on your answer script so that if you do make any mistakes, you can still get method marks somewhere along the line as opposed to just getting a 0 for just writing down the answer if your answer was incorrect. Okay. So in this case, once she has spent the $100, she has $203.50 left. And then when she returns to South Africa and she converts that to South African rands, she essentially has 3,249 Rand 90 cents in her pocket. Okay, so that is a typical exam foreign exchange question that you will get. Here it is 8 marks. It might be more in your paper. They might, ask you more questions. They might have more information. But I just wanted to give you an example of how they actually test the principle. As you can see, very similar between the 2 questions. It was all about reading the information carefully. knowing which of the two exchange rate values to use, and then secondly, knowing whether you need to multiply or whether you need to divide. Okay, so looking at BSR and BBR, this is the last part of the foreign exchange section. Okay, so the bank selling rate is the rate at which foreign currency dealers, example, the commercial banks, which is Standard Bank, ABSA, Nedbank, those are all commercial banks, will sell foreign currency. Whereas the bank buying rate is the rate at which they will buy foreign currency. So easy way to remember it, right? How do we remember what is which or which is what? When you are leaving, you're going from South Africa and you're going to travel somewhere, that is the bank selling rate. You go to the bank, you tell them, I want dollars or I want pounds. They sell you foreign currency so that you can use. Okay. When you are coming back to South Africa, when you have foreign currency and you want South African rands, right? You want to get your rands back, right? You want to get your rands back. That is the bank buying rate. Okay. So when you come back to South Africa, then you use the bank buying rate because you want your rands back. When you are leaving South Africa and you're traveling, we use the bank selling rate because we are selling you foreign currency. We're saying, here's foreign currency for you. You can take this and you can go and travel. When you're coming back to South Africa, you are saying, I want my rands back. I don't want this foreign currency. I want rand values. That is when we use the bank buying rate. Okay. So what is the bank doing with the foreign currency? Is the bank selling foreign currency or is the bank buying foreign currency? That is what I've just mentioned over there, right? Then a currency rate sheet is a list of the rates of exchange at which foreign currencies are bought and sold. Okay, so this is over here, which you will get. As you can see, they gave you the BBR and they gave you the BSR. Based on the scenario, you then just need to know which one you need to use. Okay. And then in the same case, convert a major currency to the South African rand. So in other words, a stronger currency to a weaker currency. We multiply. When you are dividing a weaker currency to a stronger currency, we divide. So it's the same principle as we used over here, right? The only difference now is that we need to know whether we're using the bank buying rate or we are using the bank selling rate. Okay, that is foreign exchange. Okay, very, very easy. If you understand it, firstly, if you write down all your steps, but all that you need to do is you just need to understand the principle. You need to know when you must divide and when you need to multiply, right? With that, you need to know when to use the bank buying rate and when to use the bank selling rate. Once you have established that, you can also check your answers. Remember, you can always check your answers and look if your answer makes sense according to the amount that you started off with, and also looking at the relevant exchange rate. And then very important, even in this example over here, right? 2 decimal places, symbol, currency symbol over there. 2 decimal places, currency symbol over here. So either they will give it to you where you must use the symbols, or they will give it to you where you must use the code, which was what they did in this case with the US dollar and the South African rand. Okay, so very important that you pay attention to how they are giving you the currency, with either giving you the code, which is ZAR or USD or AUD for Australian dollar, or they are just simply giving you the symbol to use. But either way, you must include one of them in your final answer. And always remember to round off your answers to 2 decimal places. Okay. Foreign exchange, somewhat calculations, but very easy calculations. If you understand it, as you can see, it is very, very easy marks that you can get in your paper at the end of the year. Right, so moving on to our last topic for today, just in the 5 or so minutes that we have left. Reason I kept this for last is because it's a very short topic, is customer care. Right, customer care, which you can see is your question 10, literally the last question that you'll get at the end of your question paper. Right, now they leave this for last because, you know, it's an easy topic and the tourism paper is tiring. It is tiring, it is a lot, but, you know, don't feel discouraged when you get to question 7, question 8, and think, oh, it's going to be long questions. No, there's light at the end of the tunnel. Your light at the end of the tunnel is your question 10. Okay. So the purpose of obtaining customer feedback. Okay. So this is a question that they ask. Why do we want customer feedback? Is to identify areas of customer service that need improvement. Okay. To look at areas of what can we do within our business or organization to improve the way that we deal with our customers, to adapt service to accommodate changing customer needs, positive feedback serves as staff motivation to deliver excellent service. Okay. So when you get customer feedback and it's positive, number one, you feel good about yourself. Number two, it lets management know that what they're doing, the policies that they have in place, the measures, all of these things are working and customers are satisfied. That is how you retain your customers, through offering excellent customer service and customer satisfaction. And then lastly, it can prevent the company from losing customers to competitors. Customer retention is one of the biggest things that you can have. If you're able to keep your customers, right, and you're able to achieve customer loyalty or brand loyalty, that is how you remain competitive and that is how you gain a competitive advantage over your competition. Okay. Very important about this section, why I also kept it for last, is what I always tell my students is this is more of an open-ended question approach as opposed to a closed question. Okay. So whereas tourism attractions, or health certificates, your visas and your passports, where it's one or the other, and if you don't get it right, then it's wrong. There isn't a set way to answer it. Okay. So if they ask you why is customer feedback important, right? You don't have to sit there and memorize everything in your notes and be like, okay, now I don't remember point number 3, point number 4. I don't know what to do, right? It is where you can use your own intuition to answer the question. Okay. So if you can provide a reason that makes sense, that is relative to the question, right, and is an appropriate answer, you will still get the marks for it. Okay. So it allows you to use logical thinking using your experience from everyday life situations. You can use that to answer this question. Okay. So if you are maybe standing in the queue and you saw the manager was speaking politely to someone and they sorted out the issue quickly, and you can say, you know what, customer feedback allows us to, as a business, to see how we engage with our customers. Are we able to solve problems? Are we able to retain customers after we have dealt with, issues of dissatisfaction or something like that? Okay, so don't stress if you don't remember, verbatim everything from your notes. Okay, this is more of an open-ended question which you can use applied thinking to actually answer. So don't, fret if you like, oh no, what did the notes say? I can't remember. Use your own intuition, your own logical understanding and ideas to answer this question, right? And the methods that they use, right? They like to ask you this question. Here are some methods. Surveys, right? Surveys, as you can see over here, that's where you rate the service: excellent, good, average, poor. Okay. Sometimes you go to the movies, or you go. I know they like to do it by the supermarket or by the butcher, and they have those they have those little what are they called, emojis or whatever, the green man, the yellow man, and the red man, and you go and press on whichever one is applicable. That is also a way of getting customer feedback. Okay, so surveys, questionnaires, with your prelim exams that you are writing from the department, they send you a questionnaire or a survey in this case, and you provide feedback. The paper was difficult, was the paper unfair, did I finish on time, um, were the questions fair, things like that. Those are ways that they gain feedback as well. Feedback cards, right? Those are cards that they give to customers. They ask you to fill it in and then you give it back to them. And then follow-up calls. Sometimes you go to a particular store, they ask, can we take down your details for feedback? And then they'll call you. Maybe you shopped at Mr. Price Sport the weekend, and then maybe the Monday or the Tuesday they phone you, hi, Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so. We understand that you bought this item at our store on the weekend. How was the service? Are you satisfied with the product? Are you was the customer service offered to you, was it of a good standard? Do you have any issues? Are there any complaints, or is any compliments that you can provide to us? Those are all things that happen with follow-up calls. And then SMSs, that's another thing. Yes, I know SMSs are sometimes annoying when they, bother you with all these competitions and you've won so and so amount of cash and all these things. But businesses also use SMSs to allow you to provide them with feedback as well. And then also web-based responses. So this is what you can actually do when you're purchasing things online, when you can answer, sometimes it's online surveys, sometimes it's online questionnaires that you can actually use to provide customer feedback to businesses as well. And then the last one for today that we're looking at is the positive impact of excellent service delivery. So service delivery is about you providing your service to the community or to your customers. Okay. So a question they like to ask, what are some of the impacts or the positive impacts of service delivery? Okay. These are things such as customer loyalty and repeat business. So that means if you offer excellent customer service, for example, you go to McDonald's and you order a Big Mac meal, and within less than 5 minutes, you actually get your meal. The fries are fresh, your cool drink is nice and cold, the burger is, the patty is fresh, and all of these things. Then, that is positive. You will think positive about that McDonald's. Hey, those people actually, they serve us quickly. The standard of the food is great. Not that I'm encouraging going to McDonald's and encouraging fast food, just using this as an example. But in your mind, you will be like, but this McDonald's is really good. I'm definitely going to come here again if I'm in the area, if I'm craving McDonald's. Okay, so that is how you retain customer loyalty and also repeat business. Then fewer customer complaints. Obviously, if people are happy about the service that you render or the service that you provide, you're going to have fewer customer complaints. Reduce marketing budget. Okay, so this means people are people are made aware of your business through marketing, right? Especially if you're a new business, you have to market aggressively. Something that they always use in the marketing circles is aggressive advertising. Okay, so if people know about your business through word of mouth and through excellent quality of customer service, then you don't have to really emphasize, oh, we offer excellent customer service, all of these things, because people will actually market for you through word of mouth. I can tell my friend, hey, look here, that McDonald's in this area, their service is so good. The food that you get is fresh, when we needed extra serviettes or extra condiments, they gave it to us without any hassles, all of these things. And then people start becoming more aware of that particular McDonald's as we start speaking more positively about it. Increased sales. Obviously, increased sales means more customers. More customers are coming to your store, they're purchasing more of your goods or services, and that obviously increases your sales. Improved public image. I think that speaks for itself. Edge over the competition, right? When people speak positively about you and you're known to offer excellent customer service, that already gives you an edge over your competition because people already associate that quality with your business. So if somebody goes to you and they're like, which takeaway place do I want to go to? I know that McDonald's has really excellent customer service. I'm not sure about this other place, let's rather go to McDonald's because at least we know our food will be fresh, the customer service will be good, and we don't have to wait long and all of these things. Okay, so that gives a competitive edge over your competition because of the excellent customer service or excellent service delivery that you do offer. Then more effective employees. Okay, obviously if you're able to have an excellent service delivery, then your employees are more effective. So in other words, they are able to be more productive. The quality of the work that they're doing is of a higher standard, and that just flows across all the other channels within the business. Okay, so positivity all the way leads to positivity in the workplace. It leads to positive relations between employees, and customers, and then just overall positivity and increased sales volumes for the business. And then finally, motivated staff members. Obviously, if you get compliments where your manager tells you customers are really happy with the way that we are conducting our business, the way that we are implementing our service delivery, they were saying this about us, they were saying this, all of these positive things, automatically that motivates your staff to not only continue with the high quality of work that they are currently providing, but also to try and strive to improve even further and better themselves in the business. Okay, so again, this is not all the options that you have, but these are some of the easier ones that you can use when such a question does arise in your paper. Okay, so like I said, again, go through some of these points. I trust that everyone watching this has been making notes from the slides. These are some of the answers that you can actually give for such questions. And again, if you do get stuck or you get a bit confused and you don't remember, just think to yourself, me as a customer, okay, what would I do if let's say I go to McDonald's and they're providing me with good customer service? I'm obviously going to go back. I'm going to tell my family about this and my friends, we're going to technically advertise for them as well because we're speaking about it, all of these things. So, yeah, just keep that in mind when you do get such a question and you do get a bit stuck with regards to that. Right, so that concludes our lesson for today. I hope everyone was able to learn from this and they are more confident when it comes to tackling foreign exchange and customer care in the papers that we'll be writing.
Uh, Zubair, I want to say a big shukran to you for joining us and for taking us through this valuable paper and the valuable information attached to it. Allah bless you. All the best. And assalamu alaikum.
Shukran. Wa alaikum salam. Wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.